The first two cases of Danganronpa Trigger Happy Havoc are fairly genius on how many loops they take you through. It'll have you questioning pretty much any character at any time, and I must say that I've never been on my toes so much in a video game before this point. But there's something about the first two cases that is pretty much non-existent after that, and it's the commentary on individual morality. The first case, in hindsight, does this a bit simpler than the second, but both have the same idea. Your sense of morality will only mean something to you, and you cannot hope to hold it to the same standard as another person's morality. In a sense, what you believe in is moot when stacked against what someone else believes in. In case 1, Sayaka Maizano is shown that her fellow pop singers have been attacked and could be dead. It is brought to the attention of Makoto Naeji, the main protagonist of the game, that while it would seem like too risky of a gamble for someone to simply believe what Monokuma has shown them, what he has shown could hit hard enough to easily sway a lot of people within the killing game. And that's not even the most important thing here. Only one person in the entire group of 15 students needs to be swayed, and it can be inferred that Monokuma is counting on exactly this. While 14 of the students aren't willing to accept it, one of them decides that what they were shown during the first motive period was dire enough for them to try and get away with a kill and leave. Granted, as much as the game tries to play off that Sayaka isn't a terrible person for how she went about this, I do think that there were many other avenues she could have taken. But this isn't an analysis of how evil certain students are compared to others. It's an ideology of comparing one individual's logic to another's, and the fact that I think her strategy is incredibly flawed only proves this game's point that one man's flawed strategy is another's foolproof plan. The case that I believe does this a bit better is case 2, where two character secrets were on the line. Chihiro Fujisaki was an intelligent young boy who cross-dressed as a way to take attention away from his fragile body. This was something Monokuma was willing to expose, and while some of us may not see this as a big deal, it makes sense that he would. There's still a stigma to this day that men are supposed to be strong and tall and courageous, and Chihiro didn't fit those boxes. This is another instance where our logic would be absolutely useless to him, but one where we could easily see how he came to the conclusion he came to. This case would be perfect if it wasn't for Mondo Owada, as his motivations and logic are structured out of pure selfishness, impulsivity. Again, not here to talk about how evil any of the characters are, but Mondo is high on the list for sure. His logic is structured from shaky ground, and using the logic of this game against him means nothing to me when stacked against my own logic, that dictates that doing bad things will bring back bad things onto you. But this case does well to show why using your own state of mind to make sense of others is fruitless. No one knows what everyone is going through, and no two lives are the same. Now, something that has to be accounted for is the setting and laws as well, and the general consensus for those settings and laws. Someone could argue that they find it logically sound to touch children. I'd then respond by saying my logic dictates that their logic is retarded, and they deserve worse than what Junko got. Quick note here, I was thinking about this particular paragraph here, this one about Mondo, and saying that it hurts the chapter that his logic was construed the way it was, but it's very possible that they wanted to write Mondo as a huge coward, and that was actually going to be one of the twists of this chapter. So disregard what I say about the chapter not being perfect because Mondo was a coward. Because if Mondo was, purposely written to be a cowardly character, which I, now looking back on it, I could definitely, see and believe, then, that just makes this chapter better. Possibly the best one in the entire game. Then again, there are some other cases in here that were really, really good too, but I'm not going to get into that right now. Not all logic works, even in a scenario where morality is constrained more and more over time. There was very little logic involved in case 3. There was logic that everyone could have understood and agreed on in case 4. Case 5 was literally rigged, and case 6 was barely a case and more of a cleanup. The true villain's motivation was just making life difficult for everyone else. Junko really wanted to be Joker for real. Not saying 4 through 7 were bad per se, but the concept of clashing ideals and the realism of morality versus morality was dropped as the motivations became less ambiguous and personal. Monokuma really pulled a damn Hercule in Case 3, no cap. Now listen, I'll give you money, face ass. But there's still a really concrete lesson here that I think I've started to take heart more and more recently. You can't make your ideals and logic make sense to everyone, and you probably shouldn't even try. You can express your morality, but you can't and shouldn't force them on to people. And if someone makes a decision you think is destructive, sometimes you should just let them learn for themselves. The only thing that can teach someone how reality works is reality. They may say no one warned them, they may pull a Sayaka and say that it was worth the risk to live a fantasy that could be reality at the expense of people she claimed to care about. You can be like Mondo and do anything in their power to hide their shame and keep up a facade of moral superiority. Or they can even push themselves to embrace their shortcomings by grabbing life by the horns a la Chihiro. You really deserve better. It really makes me mad. Bravo to the developers of this game to give me a femboy that actually wants to be a femboy for once. It's becoming fucking scarce nowadays. They can even adapt to the horrible world around them and make things more interesting in the name of arrogance and status, like a certain blonde-haired wet fart. But it's entirely up to them. And like it or not, we have to let them play the game the way they think makes sense. Not just in the setting of Trigger Happy Havoc, but in real life as well. Worst case scenario is that you're correct and what happens to them is on them and not you. You will never be responsible for those who reject your individual morality. Only person you're responsible for is you. Don't forget that.